Hey guys, here's Louie again. So the next move on the 1968 Firebird project is going to be the dry shaft. Because without this connected to your transmission and the other end connected to the rear end, you ain't going nowhere. I could bet you on that. So since I did the conversion to this car and I'm not going to be using an original Pontiac transmission, which these cars, the automatic cars, would have come with a couple of options of transmissions: the Turbo 350, the Turbo 400, the Power Glide, and there's another one also. Okay, I went with the Overdrive Transmission, which is a 200 R4 transmission. Originally, Chevy came out with it. It's a Chevy transmission, and that's the transmission I picked for the '68 Firebird because I never owned a Firebird first gen that had an overdrive. So this is going to be my first car that I built with an overdrive. My '69 and my '67 Firebird, well, they both have turbo 400s, which they are okay, but if you plan to drive far distance and get good fuel mileage and lower RPM, revving real high, it's a much better ride, more smooth ride. You get to enjoy the car more. So my hopes is that everything turns out good for the car. So it's a 200 R4 transmission that's inside the '68 Firebird, and this is the dry shaft. So this video is going to show you guys how to install the U-joints. One end is where your slip yoke will go, which this goes inside your transmission. Okay, this end goes to the output shaft of the transmission, the rear output shaft. Okay, and the other end will get connected to your rear end. Okay, before this video will be over, I'm going to show you guys everything: how I install it on the car, how I install these U-joints. Okay, and just for those of you that don't know, because I didn't know either, like I said, this is my first time installing a 200 R4 on these first gen Firebirds. This dry shaft came out of this car, the same Firebird I'm restoring. It came out and it had a Turbo 350. Okay, and because I'm a hoarder with Pontiac parts, I happen to have in my part shelf, I had a Turbo 350 dry shaft that was also from another Pontiac first gen Firebird, and that one actually has the original U joints, which they added. It's like a plastic. It was like a plastic Teflon kind of type that when you heat it up to come out, it starts squirting out. That plastic starts squirting out, just like how when you squeeze, let's say, a toothpaste tube, you see the toothpaste coming out. Well, it will come out through the hole that they use to inject the plastic. Okay, and I did do it on my '69 Firebird, and it was still original to the car. And when I warmed that sucker up, it even made a nice popping sound like a firecracker. So don't get scared if you guys have the original ones. I will show you somewhere in the video the original ones, because like I said, that drive shaft that I have put away still has the original ones. So don't get scared or nothing. When you warm heating it up and you see that plastic squirting out, it's gonna pop. It ain't gonna pop, that's gonna hurt you or anything. It's gonna make a popping sound. Okay? Now, I apologize again that I did not record when I took the OU joints out of this one. It was a big headache. It had me going a little cuckoo because I changed these before many times and never gave me so much of a problem like this one did. She was really rusty in there. Okay, and I did not want to use my press because there's a whole lot of guys out there that don't have a press. They just have regular hand tools, normal hand tools that if you're a car guy, you're gonna have. But if you get a socket, not this diameter here where the U joint goes in, not right here, okay? But that goes on the outside, okay? Fits the outside. You'll place your socket and you'll bang it with a hammer, and the shock of that will drive this down. It will start going down, and you will be able to take out the OU joints. Okay, at times you will have to heat it up. I did use heat for this. Now you don't want to use something really strong, to mess up the metal. But a regular MAP gas, I like to use the one that are yellow cylinders because they do burn more hot, okay? And it's safe. I've done it many times, never had a problem of messing up this metal. This metal is pretty thick, okay? And heat will be your friend here of taking the OU joints. Now, this is what I like. Everybody have different opinions, and I respect everybody's opinion. But let me tell you something. If you guys have restored an old car before, you will realize that ball joints, outer, inner tie rods, things like that back then was greasable. How long was the life of those parts back then? They used to last so long because they gave you the opportunity to grease them. So if you ever read an old manual for these cars, they recommend every time you change your oil to take a look of your suspension and all the grease fittings you have, to tap it up with grease if needed. Now, at the beginning of the video, I will take pictures of these part numbers that I am using, but you guys can have the part numbers if you do want to use the same brand that I used. Okay, now check this U-joint out, brand spanking new. I used the same one for the 69 Firebird, and I love it. I never had a problem with it. And you see where that hole is at right there? Well, guess what, guys? That hole is for your Zerk fitting. I don't know if the camera could pick that up, but your Zerk fitting is right there. Okay, and your lock rings are here. All right, and you take it out, you screw it in there, and you'll be able to service your U-joints. Okay, and they should last you a long time. I'm going to also show you how important this is to put in here, okay, and that you are able to still feel, to make sure you could service the U-joint by pumping grease in it, because if you put this on a wrong position, you might not have space. There might not be enough room to stick in the pump, the grease pump, okay? But I'll be showing all that on this video, how I do it. I also going to be showing on this video, I sand this down with about 80 grit sandpaper, regular auto body sandpaper. Okay, I use the regular sticky back 6-inch sandpaper. I fold them and I sand this down. I wipe it down with alcohol. That's rubbing alcohol. Okay, very cheap. You could go pick it up in the Dollar Tree, and that's what I use. I even use that on bodywork to wipe down the panels, make sure they're nice and clean. Okay, and remove any grease residue that's have been there for the paint to be able to stick on, have a bite to the clean part. Okay, I sand it with 80 grit, clean it with alcohol, rubbing alcohol, and then I mentioned in one of my videos, I believe it was the last video, that the paint that I use, so the same paint that I use to paint my engine bay, to paint the inner fenders, to paint inside the wheel wells, okay, I painted my frame, my subframe to the first gen Firebird. I also paint the whole floor that I installed in this car. If you guys follow me on my previous videos, so many months back, I installed rear frame rails on this car, the complete trunk floor for this car with the drop-off, the trunk drop-offs, and I also did the whole floor pan. Okay? And all those parts that I just mentioned, all that sheet metal that I just mentioned that I had to weld back to this car, I scuffed the parts. You could use a red Scotch-Brite pad, scuffed it, and that's what I shot on it, that same paint. I will be showing that paint here on this video, so stay tuned, guys. All right, guys, so here in the next step of the dry shaft is going to be sanding down your dry shaft, where you could get rid of that surface rust. It could be nice and clean and pretty when you're gonna go paint it. Okay, so this is a 6-inch sticky back sandpaper, 80 grit. I just fold it. Okay, I'm gonna use both sides as I go. It's also very important to sand and get this right here where the U-joint caps go through. Get this surface nice and smooth for when you're gonna slide in and press in your U-joints. She'll go in there real nice and smooth and won't bind up and give you any problems. You're also gonna do the same thing to the yoke. Sand in here, get that groove nice and clean for the U-joints when they get pressed in. The caps doesn't bind up and give you any issues. And also from this point on, sand it down with the same 80 grit sandpaper. Then you're gonna wash it off with rubbing alcohol. Once it's dried, we'll be applying the paint that I use on my metal parts. Okay, that helps keep them nice and painted, nice and clean. When you look under your car, it looks beautiful. And it also helps with the most important thing, rust. Your rust won't come back, okay, for a long time, because I used it many years back. And if you'll crawl in today under my 67 or my 69 Firebird, they are very clean cars underneath. Okay, of course, this part is the part of your slip yoke that goes inside the transmission. You don't want to put no paint on that. All right, you also want to lube it up with a little tranny fluid when you're ready to install it into the car, for this to go nice and smooth into your transmission. So let's get to sanding. And if you could see, if the camera picks it up, I already started sanding, and you see how loose that rust gets. We're gonna continue. So here's a dry shaft after I did all the sanding. Okay, she came out pretty clean, much more clean. Believe me, there was a whole bunch of surface rust. Let me see if I can show you guys. So after all the sweeping that I did with the brush off the bench, all that surface rust is what I picked up, okay? So it's very important that you sand all that loose rust off. So when you paint, the paint will stick. Now, the installation of the U-joints. So guys, here I am getting ready to installing the new U-joints on the dry shaft, okay? Now, I like when I remove the slip yoke from the dry shaft, I like to put the slip yoke exactly at the end of the one where I removed it from the original. So if this was the end where I removed it originally, I like to use these punches here. Okay, they sell them at Harbor's Freight. Not that expensive, and they do the job. So these punches have letters. They have letters on them. And I take out the T for this, and I stamp it here. I'll place the punch over here on this spot over here at the dry shaft, and I hit it with a hammer, and it marks a T. T standing for transmission. So I know that this is the side that is going to be facing the transmission, which means that's going to have the slip yoke, and it's going to go in. Okay, just to have a reference that I know that's where I took off the slip yoke. All right, now this is the brand new U-joint. If you see, it has a bump here. The other side don't have a bump, it's smooth. The side that have the bump, okay, is going to be the side facing in. The reason I say that, okay, and the reason is really important, because that's where your zerk fitting is going to be. And it's going to have enough room here for you could put your grease gun onto it and pump your grease. Okay? The tools I am using to knock the caps in the U-joint is an impact deep socket 3 1/4. I don't know if you guys could see that, but 3 1/4. Okay, you don't want nothing so big. You want something that matches up with the size of your U-joint caps. Now, it's really important that you keep all the needles in there. Okay, all the needles must stay in there. And the way I do it, that helps me keep the needles in there. I get a brush, and the grease that I pick and that I use, I just put a little grease on the brush, and I brush a little grease on the needles. Why? Because the grease helps keeping those needles from sliding out. Really important. Okay, that's a very nice tip right there. And the same brush, I will brush some grease on the brush, and I'll put some on my U-joint where you are going to be knocking the U-joint caps in. This just helps it slide a little bit more smooth, more easier into your dry shaft. Okay, remember I said in the video, sand this down in here with this 80 grit sandpaper and clean it. I clean it with rubbing alcohol. I spray rubbing alcohol on it, wipe it down with a clean towel, and you're done. Okay guys, so what I did was I put the cap on one of them, and the other side that's facing like this doesn't have a cap on this side. I was able to fit in a 19 size socket, 19, okay, metric, and it went all the way inside the board. Okay, see, goes all the way inside, so you could actually fit just like that on the U-joint, and it has like a backing for when you knock it in, it doesn't slide out and the pins goes all over the place. Okay, just hit it with the hammer and she slide in right in there, no problem. The next one will be the slip yoke. Now, as you guys can see, here is a zerk fitting. You see, when I slide this in, you're gonna have enough space to put in your grease pump right in there. Okay, that, by the way, on this one is a 5/16. I use a 5/16 deep socket. At first, anything that got to do with threads, I always start the threads by finger, by hand, no tools. Once I caught on to a couple of threads, then I use the ratchet and I torque it down. Okay, you don't have to torque this down like a monster or a gorilla. You just go slightly and she's done. All right guys, so once you're on this point of getting the caps into the slip joint yoke, you're gonna place the cap. Okay, I use this angle iron because it's very strong steel. Place the cap under it, lining it up correct. And this metal here on the slip yoke is pretty stout, it's pretty thick. Okay, I just grab my hammer and I hit it. You could also get a socket that is this, it just, when you place it, it lands on this side of the yoke. So on the metal of the yoke, not the cap. This one is for the cap. So right here, and you could drive it in, boom. Making sure that all your pins and everything are inside. If you use the trick of putting the grease inside the cap, you'll keep your needles in there. Okay, now we are going to get ready. It's basically the same way you install this one. It's even easier on the other end of the dry shaft, because now you don't have to worry about the slip yoke. You just have to worry to hit these in. The other side, that's it. The other caps will go into your rear end when you're ready to install it in the car. So now I'm getting ready to wash this down one more time, because I did put my greasy hands on it, and wash it down one more time to paint it. One thing I forgot to mention is your C-clips. The C-clips goes right in that groove. If it happens to be that you have your U-joints of the ones that the C-clip slides inside, there are some that do lock from the top of the U-joints. This one in particular, the C clips are knocked in from the inside. Hold on good to it, give it a little tap. Okay, there she started, and I finished knocking them in with a flat screwdriver. Okay, I just place it right there on the edge. I know maybe you guys can't see that too good, and I'm sorry, but that's the way I do it. All right, I don't know if you guys heard that clicking sound, but she's in there. She's in that groove. If this is too high, if your caps are too high, you're not gonna have enough room. You're not gonna have enough room for the C clip to have a groove to slide in. You understand what I'm saying? So make sure this is nice and flush that she's sliding in. Okay, make sure she has the right thickness also to slide in and lock in place, and she will not come out from there on. All right, guys, now that I have the brand new U-joints installed on both ends of the drive shaft, and I wiped down the drive shaft again. Okay, the whole drive shaft got wiped down also before I start painting. Now, today here in Pennsylvania, it's raining. It actually been raining for about 3 days straight. So I don't like to put my babies outside the rain. All right. Now, this paint that I'm going to show you guys, you are able to spray it with a gun. Personally, I like to use the cheap purple Harbor's Freight gun for this kind of paint. You'll clean it. I also clean it with acetone or mineral spirit or lacquer thinner. Okay, I clean the gun out as soon as I'm finished spraying paint. But due to the fact that it's raining outside, I also have brushed this paint on using a foam paintbrush. These are the foam kind. Why? Because if you use the other ones, you're going to see the lines. The standard paintbrush, you are going to see the lines on those kind of brushes. But if you use the foam brush, you won't. A lot of things I have painted with these foam brushes, nobody know if I sprayed it on or if I use this. Now, here's Louis' secret paint. Believe me, it works. This is Rust-Oleum, okay? I don't know if you guys could pick that up, but this is the semi-gloss right here. I hope you guys could see that. But this is the semi-gloss Rust-Oleum oil base, of course, not water base. Rust-Oleum oil base, excuse me. And this is a quart, 32 ounces is a quart. What I do is I put in 8 ounces. They sell it in a little can. I will share it. I'm sorry, I do not have one at the moment, but there is one added inside this. I used it and I threw out the can. But in the beginning of the video, I'm going to post a photo of the one I'm talking about. It's Cryon. All right, that's the one I add on to the Rust-Oleum. Now, if you're going to use it to spray it on, I'll put about, depending the size project I'm going to be painting, okay? I put 15 ounces. I get a measuring cup, 15 ounces, and I will add about 4 ounces to that of acetone. That's what I use to mix it, acetone. So if you're going to use about 15 ounces, I like to use 4. if you're gonna use a primer and you want to mix it with an acetone, just mix it. If you want it thick, you'll see as you stir it, you see how it falls off the stick. If the drips are very fast, if it just drips fast, well, you have it thin. If it takes time to drip, the slower the drips come down from the stick, the thicker you have it. And if you're in a rush and you need the part to dry even faster, I use this Japan dryer. Okay, if you're gonna use Japan dryer, do not mix it in the can. Okay, I have mixed it also in a mixing cup, and I poured it into the spraying gun. Okay, the air gun to spray, the sprayer. But if you're gonna mix paint, Japan dryer, and acetone, do not mix everything in here. Why? I find that when you put the acetone into this, it evaporates. Even if it's sealed, it evaporates and makes the paint a little different with texture. Okay, so I mix everything in a cup, and the Japan dryer, you put it in this, it'll ruin the paint, because with time, when you open this, you'll see it's starting to dry the paint inside. So do not mix everything in your paint can. Mix it separately. Okay, that's what I'm trying to say. So after everything is mixed and reduced with acetone, I'll start painting away. Okay, if it needs a second coat, I go with a second coat. These are very cheap. I also get these at the Dollar Tree, so you're not breaking the bank with none of this stuff. All right, and that's my secret paint that I like to use. This is Rust-Oleum Satin Black. You could also buy the Rust-Oleum, this is Rust-Oleum Semi-Gloss. You could also buy the Rust-Oleum Satin Black, and when you add the other crayon paint to it, it's gonna stay satin if you don't want that high gloss. Me personally, I do not like high gloss on these cars, because I explained that before, that these cars did not have the parts with high gloss. It was like a satin black. Okay, that's for the first gen Firebirds. But if you buy semi-gloss, of course semi-gloss is gonna have a little gloss, but once you add that crayon, it's gonna thin it down and it's gonna come out like a satin black. You guys will see once I paint the dry shaft and I share the photos with you guys. But that's what I use. And also, this is for protection. Like this, it won't get this rust and all that stuff on your dry shaft. Okay, guys, so this is about 24 hours of giving the dry shaft after I painted the dry shaft. 24 hours to dry completely. It's okay, safe now to grab her, not wet. And you see, like I tell you guys, if you use the Rust-Oleum semi-gloss, this happens to be semi-gloss. You could also use the Rust-Oleum oil-based satin, because the Krylon paint that I use was only 8 ounces. This is a quart, which is 32 ounces. The Krylon was flat black. So this being semi-gloss, and you add the flat black, it comes out to a satin color, as you guys can see the dry shaft now. Okay, that's the paint again that I use. I prefer using these paints. A very durable paints. Okay, and as you guys can see, it came out awesome. I mean, the dry shaft, it looks like it was built completely yesterday. All right, there goes my Zert fittings, easy access to get to. All right, I'm very happy how everything turned out. Okay. And now it's time to install this baby in the car. Now, when you are measuring dry shaft, okay, a dry shaft, you want to measure it from the center hole where you will knock in, let's say, the U-joints. You want to measure from this center hole here, not here where it begins, from center. So this one in particular, center to center, is 50 inches. Okay, she's 50 inches from center to center. And the yoke is about 6 inches. Okay, sorry if you guys can't see that, but that's what the measuring tape is saying. Okay, so all together, if you add it up, they are 56 inches. All right, and on my 68 Firebird, this car had a Chevy motor. Okay, had a Chevy motor because I found it with Chevy motor mounts. It had a turbo 350 in it, and with the Pontiac rear end, which on this car is a 10 bolt 355 non-posi. Okay, which now she has a Pontiac motor 350 Pontiac. It happens to be a 1968 block, okay, that I had on my 69 Firebird originally, and me and Jonathan installed that. Me and Jonathan from Vinyl Village Garage installed that motor in my 68 Firebird with a 200 R4 that we also made a custom cross member for the transmission. Okay, and we made everything work. It looks beautiful, it's nice, I'm happy. Okay, so this will be another reference point. If everything lines up perfect, the rear end is where it's supposed to be, and all that, all those measurements, because this used to be in the car. She's just all rebuilt, nice and painted now. Okay, so I'm gonna get ready now, jack up the car to install it. Guys, let me share something else with you. And the reason I'm saying that the measurements where the rear end supposed to match up if everything is good, which I know everything is good with this dry shaft, is because a 350 turbo 350 transmission and a 200 R4 transmission, they are the same length. Okay, body wise they are the same length. Okay, and since this was in the car before, everything should fit right in. Okay, which of course I did it already. Me and Jonathan actually did it when he was here before I rebuilt all this, and everything fit like a glove. Okay, your slip yoke supposed to be coming out of the transmission, all right, anywhere from about an inch to an inch and a half. All right, now I also want to share that somewhere down the line, the U-bolts, which goes on this side to the rear axle, I purchased brand new ones from Firebird Central. Okay, and I don't know if you guys can see that part number, but that's it right there. Okay, capital T, capital R, capital A /779, and at the bottom here it says capital M /7. I forgot what I paid for this, but it's cheap. So it's cheap insurance. I didn't want to use the original ones because, well, I figure it's really old and stuff like that. Once you start torquing on this so many times, and the age of it, the rust and all that, it's really not safe. So why not just buy some for a couple of dollars? I think this might have been $15 or so, if that. All right, so I think that's a great investment. Let's get ready to install the dry shaft in the 68 Firebird. Yes, guys, so I almost forgot, but I caught it on time. So this is the original, this is a original dry shaft for first gen Firebird. This one also, but it's have been rebuilt. I just rebuilt it. Now this one still, believe it or not, have the original U-joints. The grease, that not grease, like that plastic injected stuff, Teflon plastic stuff that I was talking about. That's, I hope you guys could see that right there. See that, like a nipple kind of coming out of there? That's what it is. So on my 69 Firebird, she was original, just like this. So when you heat this up for it to get, so, you know, loose enough, and when you whack it, she'll come out. They'll fight you when they're really rusty, believe me. It will make a popping sound, like pop. Okay? But you'll be fine. Don't worry. Nothing's gonna blow up in your face, like I said before. You'll be fine. And also the other end is like that. I just figure I'll share that with you guys. Okay, guys, we're here under the 68 Firebird. Hope I don't get in you guys' way, but right there is the tail shaft, okay, of the transmission. That's the rear of the transmission. And when you guys are going to install a yoke in the transmission, okay, use a little tranny fluid and lube her up. Don't install it dry. Nobody likes anything dry. Put a little lube on it, and you just see how nice things will work out for you, and it'll just slide right in. Like I said, I hope I'm not in your way. Oh, okay. Here we go. In like butter. In like butter. Now we're gonna do the rear part of the dry shaft. Alright guys, on this end is pretty straightforward, okay? So you slide your dry shaft back some until she falls nice and flush, okay? Nice and flush to the rear end, okay? The pinion over here of this yoke to the rear end. And then you get your U-bolts, you install them in here, you torque them down, which I don't know if I'm 100% sure for the torque specs on this, but I believe it's about 30 foot-pounds to 15 foot-pounds. Do your research. I think the last time I saw it, it was about 15 to 30 foot-pounds. Okay, I'll be back. There you go, guys. She's installed. The dry shaft is installed. Let's go to the end of the transmission over here. And if you guys could see that, she's perfectly installed. Okay. All right, guys. So that is one step closer from getting this car to be a driver. Pretty soon she'll be a driver. October 18th is my birthday. My goal was to get her to move under her own power By that time, I don't know if I'm going to meet that goal, but let's see. You never know. Stay tuned. A lot more videos coming. I'll be restoring the deluxe wheel for a 68 Firebird. Deluxe steering wheel. Also the column. Brake lines. From scratch, from the beginning. From a coil all the way until you bend them, flare them, and put them on the car. Right, guys? Thank you for everything. Thank you for watching. Take care now. Bye-bye.